Welcome to True and Unpolished. Through this podcast, our intention is to uplift, amuse, and inspire you to create more of a life you'll love. Let's get authentic, everybody. Hey, everybody. We're back. Some of you noticed that we were not here yesterday, we were not here last week. And I will tell you that Mary was away doing fascinating and exciting things. And I was here in body, but mentally was not here. So we're both back in body and mind and spirit right here today. And because of the nature of what we're going to talk about today, we want to share with you how we traditionally start before we begin recording. Mary and I always begin each podcast with an intention. And we've shared this before, that we believe that, intention belongs at the beginning. And then everything will unfold according to highest good when you do that. So if you will, you may either listen or join in with us. But we take this moment to pause. It is our intention to be truly helpful to Lydia and to Mary and to all of you. We do not need to worry about what to say or what to do, for we are guided. Love's will be done. And that's it. That's how we start. And I will then tell you that it was last Sunday at Unity. We had two different people stand up in the gathering. And one of them said that, they were feeling a little depressed because they felt they needed to cancel, going to this kind of family gathering get together, some of which included people from out of town. And they were feeling really sad about that. They just made that decision based on the fact that they themselves were vaccinated, but this extended family are not vaccinated. And this, with, Delta variants and things like that, this person was feeling very, stressed out about, what were the right choices and what were the things to do right now. And then that person sat down, and the person right behind them stood up and said, well, I'm exactly the opposite. We have chosen not to vaccinate. And, he shared a little bit more. And what was beautiful is I stopped them right away and I said, wait a minute. You mean to tell me that you're in the same room sitting just right in front of and behind each other, and you disagree on this issue? And everyone laughed. And the person in front who had talked about, being vaccinated and being sad about his family not being, he turned around and as a joke began to pull up his mask, and everyone laughed, including the person who said that they do not, vaccinate, nor do they mask. And it was light and everyone laughed. And at the end of the conversation, the two people bumped elbows. And it was a time of real love. And, what struck me, and I said so then, is that this is what it's going to take. People feel very strongly about this issue of vaccination, of masking, whether you're for it or not for it, whatever your feelings are, they're strong. And so we're in this time where it feels like we're all so divided. And we're not even talking about, the political stuff that we just all went through and are continuing to go through. But on this particular issue, we're just so divided. And I know that what it takes is people who have different feelings on this, who believe differently on this. We have to be able to come together, and we have to see each other's humanity. And it doesn't mean that we have to agree with one another, but we certainly must respect one another. And I think that that's what's missing. It's almost like there's so much judgment that we're dehumanizing the people that disagree with us in our harsh judgments. So that's where I wanted to begin. How about you, Mayor? Mary told me something very interesting that I had not heard about. Do you want to share that, Mayor?
Yeah, well, first of all, I had 2 nights ago, I had a dream, and the dream was I was flying to New York City with David.
On a plane?
Yeah, we were flying on a plane.
Oh, darn. I love flying dreams. Okay.
Well, we were, oh, okay, flying
Yeah.
without a plane. Yeah,
Yeah.
those,
Okay.
I don't know if I've ever had one of those dreams, but I hear they're magical,
Oh, I've only
wonderful.
had one, but they're amazing. Okay. Go ahead. So you're flying on a
Well,
plane.
this is the closest I get to a flying dream, but I remember it being dark and we were going to New York City. I texted David to tell him I had had that dream, and he said, "Well, what did we do when we got to New York?" And I didn't know because I couldn't remember. Later on that day, he texted me and said that New York City was the first city in the United States to issue restrictions where people who are unvaccinated cannot go into indoor dining, gyms, and movie theaters. And the list is not completely, from what I understand, the list is not complete, but that's a starting point, and it will likely include other indoor places that are not, essential. Like, I think grocery stores wouldn't be included, that sort of thing.
Right.
I guess I'm just kind of, I don't know what to think, but I think what you were saying before about your story of love and, showing up and seeing the humanity underneath our personal preferences or beliefs is such an essential part of what's needed right now. And I know that for myself, I have fears surrounding my own stance, my own belief. And I think that's true for everybody on either side of the argument. The fear.
Well, yeah, and I'll say too that I love how you put it, the humanity underneath beliefs and opinions, because every person, I've said many times that my father was a veteran, many times over, served several tours in Vietnam, and any person that I have spoken to that has been through war has said something like this. They say that in order to do what must, quote unquote, must be done in a war, you can't think of the other side as human. Like you must strip away their humanity, because in order to kill them and do the things
Mm-hmm.
that you do in war, you cannot see them as human. And that to me is what's disturbing right now. What's disturbing to me right now is that I know that that's what happens in war. So if we are taking away the human in our own minds, and see, it's more subtle than that. So it's not gonna be like you have a feeling that this person isn't a human. It's way more subtle. It's that slowly you lose sight of the person actually standing in front of you, or the person that you're thinking about, and you begin to think of their thoughts and their beliefs as who they are.
Well, and I think that's really easy to do in a culture that one has been isolated
Mm-hmm.
for the last year and a half. Not completely, and it's been less so in the last 6 months, but really more isolated than ever. And the communication and connections that we have are through screens,
Right.
through social media largely, through platforms like Zoom and other meetup kinds of online platforms. And so it's really easy to dehumanize something or someone who you can't really see, or you're seeing through a screen.
Well, I have to say, when you said that, what occurred to me is that we've been on the way to that for a really long time because of social media. Because when you're looking at someone's feed, you are not looking at the totality and truth of that person. You are looking at what they happen to be willing to share. And I would venture to say that you're not, it's very rare that you see people like last week when I kind of lost my mind a little bit. That's how I put it. I certainly wasn't taking pictures and videos of it and putting it on my Facebook feed and showing you
Right.
all
You
the
show
sides
the
of
good
me.
stuff.
Yeah, you show the things you want to share. And so I think for a long time, we've been on our way to this, on our way to not actually seeing people, but caricatures and stories of people. So it's not a far leap that then when we went to only being able to see each other through screens, and I think Zoom and, Meetup are almost preferable to the social media because at least you're looking at a human being. But we were walking around we were all walking around with masks on. I mean, one of the things that Eckhart Tolle taught me in his book, A New Earth, is in the very beginning, he talks about being at a dinner party and what do people say to you, to get to know you. What's your name? What do you do? Where are you from? These are all things.
Right now, the question is, have you been vaccinated?
Yeah, exactly. We've just moved to a different question. You know what I mean? But all of
Yeah.
it is that the ego in
Are
us.
you going to be in my camp or the
Right.
other camp?
That's right. Like, where do I rank in comparison to you? That's what the ego does. Like, I need to know who you are so that I can know who I am in relation to you. Like, I get my identity by relating to you and who you are. And, am I superior to you? Am I inferior to you? Where do we stand? So, this is just another question. The only thing here is that now we're talking about, and I would not have said this a few months ago. I feel like I feel inspired to tell you that I am vaccinated, and I am also very concerned about people's rights and liberties and their right to choose what they do with their bodies in relation to vaccines. So it's a little scary. It can't, that we would have to show a card, on its face. And I've heard, arguments on the other side that say it's, not a big deal. Well, to me, masks aren't a big deal. And, some wise person told me in the beginning, well, masks, it's not about the mask, it's that the masks are the beginning. It's just the beginning.
What?
Some wise person told me in the beginning all of this, that because I thought masks are not invasive. Just put on the mask, whether you think so or not. Who cares? Just wear the mask and not a big deal. And this
Right.
wise person said to me, well, it's not really about the masks for them. It was about the fact that the masks was the beginning of being told what to do, and being kind of, having something forced upon you, And then I've heard people say, okay, no shirt, no shoes, no service.
Right.
We never balked about that. Blah, blah, blah. It's because it's new. And, there are many sides to this. And honestly, I think that the most important thing is that we all need to take a breath and realize, are we dehumanizing people? Like, are we? Like, in our own minds, in our own hearts, are we so angry, because we feel like we're going to get sick and they're putting us in danger, or our children in danger who don't get the choice to vaccine and all of this? Or, on the other side, are you, seeing these people as robots who are following, blindly, sheep following blindly this, edict from people who we can't trust, and, we're just a bunch of sheep and blah, 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 blah. I mean, do you see all of that rhetoric is is dehumanizing other people. And dehumanizing other people leads to war. That's where it goes. When people are no longer people and we disagree vehemently, vehemently? I just said that word wrong. Vehemently. I'm going with that. That's what I'm going with.
That's
Mark that
good.
down. Um, that is when we begin to be at war, and war starts first in the mind. Like, make no mistake, war doesn't begin when the first punch is thrown, when the first slur is thrown, when the first word of anger, when the first gunshot. That's not where war starts. War starts in the mind.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good sort of way to look at this. And I also know that when I have conversations with people, not through text, not through social media, but actual live conversations, where you can pick up inflection and you can
Mm-hmm.
hear their tone and everything, I feel much more connected, much more able to have compassion for the other person than when I'm just in my own head and in my own space about it.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. And that's exactly right. That's why, you know, that is why I truly feel like what is required now is open dialogue with one another, face to face dialogue with one another, so that we can really, it's very difficult to dehumanize another human being when we're in one-on-one conversation with them. I mean, it takes a lot, though it happens, but we're much less likely to do so. And each of us need to, as always, stop looking at them, quote unquote, and start looking at us, like me. What is my part in this? How do I contribute change? How do I contribute growth? How do I contribute love to this situation, to this conversation? How do I do that? How do I show up from my essence?
Well, I was going to say that is why we started the way that we did today, is by taking a breath and
Right.
asking for guidance, asking for the highest good, then moving forward. And we can do that when we have to start anything new, whether it's coming home from a busy day at work, whether it is, you know, starting a meeting, um,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, going into the grocery store, whatever new thing that we're doing, having the intention to show up with love and let go of some of the judgment that really I think we all have struggled with, in our own experiences, having judgment about how other people are responding, what other people are doing. But the reality is, none of us have lived through a pandemic before, and
Amen.
and also I think, not only that, but I think this is a time where systems are changing.
Yeah.
The familiar is changing. And so, I mean, this example of, New York implementing this rule
Mm-hmm.
or restriction is, a great example of possibility in other areas,
Sure.
doing too. But it's not just the restrictions, it's also systems that, have been in existence for a very long time, since at least since the United States was founded. These systems
Absolutely.
are going to, I think, are going to change. And so none of us have ever done this before.
Yeah, and that's such a great place to start. None of us have ever done this before. Even if you can just take a breath, and recognize that these people with whom you disagree, they've never done this before. You've never done this before. Nobody's ever done this before. The people in charge have never done this before. Everybody's trying to figure things out. And it's a time where what's called for is empathy and compassion and gentleness with each other. Those judgments that you have, that they hurt. Like, pay attention. It hurts you. Like, if you are really judging somebody, you can feel in your body, in your mind, it feels bad. It feels really bad.
Well,
And
that's funny that you said that, because Lydia and I started talking about this before we started recording. And as we were talking, I started feeling anxious and irritated
mhm,
as Lydia and I were talking. And so I think, just recognizing that is also, if you're highly sensitive as a human,
yeah,
then you may be picking up not only on your own
yes,
reaction to your own judgments, but also reactions that other people are having. And so kind of recognizing that that is happening. I think it's happening a lot, because the other thing that is occurring is people are sort of waking up to aligning with their soul, like who they are in their essence, who they
hmm,
are at their core, like the part of ourselves that is going to live on after our body dies, which
hmm,
is is inevitable for all of us, by the way.
that's right.
Um, so, I think just recognizing that human part of ourselves and being gentle with that part of ourselves. And also, I like, we've talked about rituals before, and I use a lot of rituals to help me manage my own emotions, my own judgments, and that sort of thing,
hmm,
um so that I'm not, because I do tend to take stuff on, and my, regularly practicing meditation and that sort of thing, I think helps with being able to manage it differently than I did when I was younger, which wasn't something I was always proud of, the way I managed my emotions.
yeah, yeah. And for me, one of the things that I do, and I've shared before, is the just like me practice from Puma Children. And so you see someone, you're talking to someone, you notice that you are angry at them for what they believe, or that you're judging them for what they believe. And you say something like, just like me, they think they know the right thing to do. Just like me, they believe what they're hearing. Just like me, so the more you do that, the more you begin to, and I can honestly say that I think that my practicing that practice for so many months has led me to where I am now, which is much, much more open. Um, very, I have not had judgment in a really long time about this situation. Not really long, but months. It's been months since I've felt judgment. I've really kind of turned a corner with it, where I'm able to be open to everybody. And what I'll say too is that judgment and that, hate, you cannot hate somebody enough to change their mind. You cannot judge somebody enough to change their mind. You cannot criticize somebody enough to change their mind. So your ego is tricking you into believing that you're somehow being helpful, and you're not. And the person that's suffering is you. And if you really feel like some sort of change is needed, or some sort of activism is needed, I promise you that the powerful activism doesn't come from that space. You can't be truly inspired to hear what love wants you to champion in that judgmental, hateful, separate, cut off from them space. Like, you have to see their humanity and your oneness, or your brother and sisterness, in order to be a part of the change.
Well, you gave me a prayer a lot many years ago, probably like 6 years ago, that I really use all the time. And it's something that I memorized because it was so helpful. But basically, it's a healing prayer for the other person.
Yes, yeah.
And the idea with that is I can't have healing in my own experience unless I am willing for the other person that I'm angry with or hurt by or judgmental of to also have healing too.
That's right. That's right. You cannot, because we are so connected by that which we cannot see, but we can feel, and you can feel it in so many different ways. So many, I mean, one of them is by walking into a room and kind of knowing right away what's going on in that room. You can feel you're connected to the energy, you're connected to them. We are connected. And so that is that, and that has to be tended to. And so if you want to be joyful, if you want to be happy, if you want to be free, you must want that for them too. And you, because of that connection, have the ability to accept it for yourself and them. But you cannot have it by yourself. You must want it for them too. And that doesn't mean your version of freedom for them. It means life's version of freedom for both of you. Life with a capital L. There is a divine intelligence, and that intelligence knows what to do and knows your highest good and their highest good. And so part of it is relinquishing this rigidity around what we think is the answer, being willing to let it go. And it doesn't mean that you won't pick it back up again, but until you're willing to let it go and willing to be wrong about it and be open about it, you're not actually going to be able, your view will be so narrow that you don't have the ability to actually say what's right, because your view is too narrow. So this has been the beginning of this conversation. I know
And
that.
I just want to say, I just wanted to mention that it doesn't matter which side of the fence,
That's
coin,
correct.
whatever metaphor you want to use. Doesn't matter which side you're on.
That's right. And that's the point. We've got to come together with all people. And I am fortunate enough to know people whose consciousness that I respect, know people whose consciousness that I know is love, who disagree with me on the course of action. And I am grateful for that, because it shows me that mine might not be the only way. I wonder, could you sit with that? Could we all sit with that? Are you willing to be a little wrong? Are you willing to maybe open up your mind to a different point of view? Are you willing to look at somebody's humanity versus their judgments? I know y'all are, because y'all are the advanced class. So, all right, everybody. This has been a deep and profound conversation from True and Unpolished. Let's see what happens next.